We back out here. Politics as usual. Big Fred in the house,
Comrade Thirst
along
Trap.
with Comrade Thirst Trap. Sticking. It's
Okay, I,
there.
I think it's back. It's
It
back.
is.
We're back. We're back after a
We back.
brief hiatus.
Brief hiatus. I had to go travel the world a little bit. Went to Panama. Went to go see my grandmother and me
Hmm.
and Tia. It was amazing. So yeah, we back out here. The world is on fire, but it's all good. We here to help you chill out a little bit. Anyway, hey, we're rapping about a lot of things today. First of all, we actually haven't had a conversation about Iran, so we're going to hop into this current president's war against Iran. You all can probably guess where our feelings and things live there, but
Hmm.
we'll bring a level headed conversation to it. Thanks for joining us this week on Politics as Usual.
Thanks. I feel a lot better now.
Hey, that's what we're here for. Let me button up my tie a little bit and put my John Chancellor voice on.
Free therapy.
Good evening. President Trump last week started a war against a nation that has been planning and waiting for this for almost a century. If you're listening to this, you know what's going on in Iran. First of all, these idiots. That's a little strong. No, that's not too strong. These idiots. Speaking of this administration, when you wait until the Olympics are over to start a war that no one asked for, no one wants, and doesn't actually have any objectives to it, it was incredibly clear that there were conversations around this. And they said, we are going to wait until the Olympics are over to start killing people for no reason. And I want people to sit with that.
What is the latest out of Iran?
I was talking to my sister about this yesterday. I think in my entire brain developed life, maybe let's say 20 or 25 years, I think I might have watched maybe 4 dozen hours of documentaries on Iran. Since I was a younger man, was obsessed with the Iran hostage situation in 79 and 1980. Obsessed with it. I don't know why. I was like 16. I was like, oh my gosh, what happened? What was this? I think part of that was growing up in Georgia. And I had a chance to meet Jimmy Carter on several occasions. I love that man. Rest his soul. And was just always sort of fascinated by, okay, why didn't he get a second term? Why do people think he's terrible? And when people say that, it automatically goes to the hostage crisis. Now, people tend to forget is that there were plenty of similar hostage crises and situations throughout Reagan's presidency that were much worse than the one that Jimmy Carter did. But Walter Cronkite wasn't on TV counting down the number of days that hostages were there, so people weren't really paying attention. Folks weren't putting yellow ribbons around their trees. Anyway, different conversation. And so, what I do know, and we should obviously sort of prep what's actually going on. This has been brewing for almost 90 years. I think one of the things that people don't understand about Iran is that this is a regime who have always had this belief and understanding that the United States is going to try to enact some level of revenge. Some folks think that's a direct conflict of, hey, we're still not over the embarrassment of the hostage crisis from 45 years ago. That's a different conversation. But the latest is that we have a stupid president who went ahead and bombed the place and started killing schoolgirls under the behest of Iran not being able to have nuclear capabilities. And the jury is still out on whether the decimation of their nuclear facilities was successful. Maybe what you've researched could shed more light on that, Cat.
I mean, the decimation of their nuclear facilities has been an ongoing project of the United States.
Several administrations.
Yeah, and the whole reason that Iran made any advancements that it did in the last decade toward a nuclear program is solidly because of Trump leaving the treaty that we had in place during his first term. Biden re entered it. But I mean, yeah, so that's that. The two things that feel pertinent to talk about today, as we're filming this Friday, the 27th of March, I'll just say the funny thing out loud first. Kash Patel's personal Gmail account was
Yes.
hacked by Iranian hackers.
And so it begins.
This man's personal Gmail was hacked, and what they found, I wish I could tell you that it was like damning or salacious, but it's the most like ninth grade boy ass shit in the whole world. It's like pictures of him posing with big bottles of liquor and cigar bars. It's just the most brain dead manosphere, like high value male cosplay. And it's all in this man's personal Gmail account. Like, what are you at the 40/40 club telling people like, hey man, send me those pictures so I can post them? You just like have them
Right.
all in your Gmail account? Like, my dog, you're the director for the Federal Bureau of Investigations. And you're out here getting custom forces made for you and getting your Gmail account hacked. Like, what separates you vibe wise from like you and like a dude running a fragrance kiosk in a mall? Help me understand the
Another
difference,
thing.
because spiritually they feel like the same person.
I think the guy running the kiosk might be more qualified to be director of FBI than
Yeah,
Cash Patel.
probably. So there's that. That's the funny part. The unfunny part is what's been happening with the Strait of Hormuz the last
Mm.
week. This administration keeps talking about reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is not closed, babe. It is not
No, they
closed.
want what, 2 million a ship?
It is not available to us, but it is not closed. And here's where this does become a little bit tricky. In addition to what that has done and will continue to do to oil prices, there were either urea processing or nitrogen processing facilities, or maybe both, in Qatar that were destroyed as part of the ongoing military operation. That matters because I think something like almost like a quarter of our country's fertilizer supply comes from that
Oof.
part. So farmers, the window for planting is closing. Farmers don't have the fertilizer that they need. They are very likely not going to get it this year, which means an industry that has already been absolutely decimated. Farmer bankruptcies, by the way, are up 46% in 2026 alone.
Wow.
This is a part of our country's economy that has suffered tremendously in the last several years, explicitly because of the actions of this administration. And now they're not going to have the fertilizer that they need for their planting. This is going to impact the crops that this will impact the most are going to be things like corn, rice, wheat, I think soy. And when we think about farmers produce those things, not just for those to be sold as they are, but the things that it produces as a result, like
Mm-hmm.
the things for which that is an essential ingredient. It is also true that the vast majority of our agricultural industry produces food that either gets exported or is used for food for animals in factory farming situations. The
Mm-hmm.
TLDR is that what's happening in Iran is bad for fuel prices, which is bad for pretty much every aspect of our economy, but it's also absolutely devastating for farmers. And so when you and I were texting back and forth about this, and I was saying, like, if we talk about Iran, I want to talk about ancestral veneration. Here's why I think they're linked. If you scroll any social media platform, you will probably end up at some point seeing some very unassuming person talking to you about recipes they're cooking from a cookbook from the Great Depression era, or how to prep starting from zero. If it didn't occur to you why those things are starting to come through your feed, here's why. Things are going to get really hairy for us for the remainder of this year. And we may not see the full impact of it until the fall, but that means that, especially if you're in the southern part of the country, your window of time is closing. If you're in the north, you have a little more time. Two things. Anything that you can grow on your own, you should. And you don't have to have an entire victory garden. You don't have to produce all of your own food, even if it's starting small with potatoes or lettuce or herbs or whatever. Start with one thing and then continue to grow it. I mentioned ancestral veneration because this looks different for people depending on your spirituality or your faith tradition is. But I remember not long after the election, in 2024, my I felt my grandmother's presence in such a strong way that I hadn't felt in a while, and it was nudging me toward being a better steward of my resources. It started with things like how I store my food. So I'm able to store it so it stays fresh for longer. And I'm like, Grandma, why are you telling me what is all this shit? And then it was things like you need to start acting like you make 50% of what you do.
Mm.
There was all of these nudges, and for context, like I have an altar that is set up specifically for venerated ancestors of mine. And ancestral practice has been deeply important to me. And it is something that people, regardless of your faith tradition, there is an aspect of this that is accessible to you. Leaning into the wealth of ancestral knowledge that is available to us, not just through our own like research, but through actually trying to create some type of open channel where your ancestors know they are welcome in your home, they are welcome to nudge you in certain directions or inspire you or speak to you, I think is incredibly important. But that's me.
No, I love it. That's a blessing. Things are about to get shaky out here. Probably gonna see $6 gas by Memorial Day. Be ready, cause it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a video of a young boy. He couldn't be more than 8 or 9 years old, somewhere in Iran, and a couple of members of his family had died in strikes. I'm not sure if they were U.S. strikes or Israeli strikes, but one of the two. And the boy was crying, and he vowed revenge for his father's death. My dad often tells this story of when he served in the military, when he was deployed. I think it was either Iraq or Kuwait, one of them during Desert Storm. And how he would see how some of the guys would treat some of the kids, how they were coming up and asking for food, and how he was always intentional about not doing that. Because even then, he could see a direct correlation between the way those children were treated, the things and the people that were taken from them by way of violence, and what that would mean 10, 15, 20 years down the road. All we're doing over there is laying real fertile ground for some of the most depraved, violent extremist groups we have ever seen a decade from now. That is all we're really doing. And I always think back to that. I did a lot of traveling recently. I went to the airport. And we do this whole song and dance because we want to feel like we're safer. And so we take our shoes off and throw away our water bottles and have rerun our bags because we left a bottle of hand sanitizer in there and talk to us about this and that and the third. And like by and large, this is what I want folks to understand. Knock on wood, them boys ain't coming back through the airport. What we should have is an administration, an FBI, the DHS, the State Department doing its freaking job, trying to figure out where them boys is coming back through next time. Because let me be clear, they are coming back.
We'd have to rehire some people first because Elon fired them all.
And so, like, I don't say this facetiously. Like, this is actually we're gonna have to. I mean, look, we still got 3 more years of this buffoon, so we can't quite have these conversations now. But the depth and the extent to which this whole thing has to, I don't even want to say be rebuilt because, I'm not sure there are aspects of the empire we want rebuilt, but there are like sort of basic things that just like played an intricate role in just the preservation of human life. People in state departments gathering intelligence who did dangerous stuff. Look, this is me living in the world as it is and the world as it should be. I am aware of why extremist groups or groups we label as terrorists want to do some of the things they want to do. So that is one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum is the people who are doing everyday work to go out here and try to prevent it. And even if it is as a result of centuries of militarism and colonialism, still recognizing that, hey, this 32-year-old mother of three didn't have anything to do with that. And we want to prevent her untimely death from those are things that there are just so many people within government, within these institutions who we're doing. And like, we don't have adults in rooms in leadership positions within the administration doing that right now. I know that's a long 30,000 foot view of Iran, but like, that's predominantly where my thoughts go, is the extent to which, one, we are killing innocent people for really no reason. What does this mean for our foreign affairs, for our foreign policy 5, 8, 10 years down the road? You mentioned this, right? Some of this is a religious aspect of it. I believe there are people making these calls, making these decisions, who don't feel like we might still be here in 5 or 8 or 10 years. Like, they really think they're on a crusade, on a holy war
That is
for a
correct.
God who wouldn't recognize them if they stood before them. Like, depart from me, you work of iniquity. I never knew you. And I'm totally fine telling that to people, because you will be known by your works. Right. All right. So, different conversation. We don't have to delve into that. But this is where we're at, and it's March of 2026. We don't even have a chance to have a fair election, to have a new president for another who knows how long. So we don't have to get into the elections part. Speaking of airports, speaking of elections, the boys ain't coming back to the airport. I don't know if anybody ever told y'all that, but we still gotta take our shoes off and empty our water bottles. I get it. Something bad, catastrophic happens. You still gotta do that. I spend a lot of time up at night thinking, like, we don't have people who can be trusted to legitimately ideate and think about and be creative and innovative about where the threats are actually going to come from in the next few years. That bothers me.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, most of them see some type of destruction here as a quickening, right? They're premillennial dispensationalists.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there it is. There's that education coming back. Um, and so
And
they're
what is
just
that?
it refers to basically a difference in how people understand the second coming, whether the second coming will bring a certain number of like years before everyone gets raptured to heaven, or if it'll be immediate. It's a real oversimplification, but we didn't plan for a theology episode today. Some people are like rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem and going through all of this suffering domestically. Like, this is all a part of it. It's all a part of the plan to usher in the second coming. We often say the cruelty is the point. They don't see it as cruelty, but the suffering is the point.
I hate these people.
You and me both, man.
I hate these people. And I don't care how many times you read the Bible, how many times you study it, how many times you look at the same concordance, how many times you go to people who have a similar theology to affirm what it already is you believe. No one knows the hour that the Son of Man will return. If you believe in that, like, are y'all gonna believe what's written in Revelation over what the actual Jesus, the Christ, the Messiah said about him returning? Like, this is why I'd be so confused. And we can just say that's also an interpretation of Revelation. All right. I got beef. This is probably a different conversation. I have lots of thoughts and interpretive differences when it comes to the book of Revelation. We went on a theological tangent, but I think that's important because that explains a lot of what's happening in Iran. We got the Secretary of Defense, which they call the Secretary of War, which I hate. Anyway, different conversation.
Yeah,
Like, out here
we're not
telling
finna call
people,
it that. Is
I ain't
Secretary of
calling it that.
Defense.
Right. Out here telling soldiers they're in a holy war.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. They just had their monthly worship service at the Pentagon. That
I
is
hate this.
what this is about. I understand that there are people who do this, but I still can't wrap my brain around taking most anything, but taking the book of Revelation especially literally. Like,
Literally.
that shit is fucking crazy to me, bro.
Literally.
You don't, and then for other people to be like, oh well, and this is probably where I get into I don't want to like, I don't. My intent is never to like offend anybody, but for people who are like, oh well, it was a divinely given vision, da da da. I'm like, hold on, let's place these things in their proper historical and cultural context. You, John was exiled,
On the
right?
island of Patmos.
It was just him on Patmos vibing. He could have had sun poisoning, food poisoning, some bad wine. That's the kind of shit that you say when you are in an illness induced delirium. And you're really going to base foreign and domestic policy off of a seven-headed dragon with a crown of stars. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I don't know. I'm preaching to the choir because it makes me feel better, but this shit is really bananas.
I think that's a nice way to put it. I'm sitting here like reading certain passages in Revelation. Then I saw the Lamb open one of the seven seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures say with a voice like thunder, "Come." I looked, and there was a white horse. Its rider held a bow. A crown was given to him, and he went out as a conqueror in order to conquer. That's Revelation 6 1 through 2. Look, y'all, we have this conversation all the time. Kat and I differ in our spiritual and philosophical underpinnings. I actually believe most of the stuff in this book, right? But I take very literally not a whole lot of stuff in this book, if that makes sense. And some people would say that means I'm not a real Christian. Oh well.
Listen, I think people who are new might not know that we have a wide difference of opinion, but I think that if a pastor and the whore of Babylon can do a podcast together, then anything's possible, including a foreign policy that doesn't get us starved or killed. So
Yeah.
can we get people on that?
Well, that's where we're going.
Really derailed.
It's okay. I love it. Let this be an example for people to have conversations and be in relationship with people who don't hold the same views and opinions. I do not want to cram this conversation on Cuba and socialism. So I think we're going to have to table this one. Although, maybe this is the first time I'm propositioning this, actually, people. Maybe we get two episodes a week momentarily instead of one.
I got time right now. We can do Cuba next time, whenever next time is. I really want to talk about it.
I do too.
Um, I understand why we're all focused on Iran right now, and that feels appropriate. We need to talk about the U.S. and Cuba. Helpful to preview for people what our next several episodes will consist of, starting in a couple of weeks. Okay, starting in what we say, mid-April.
Mid-April.
Okay. If you don't already have this book, you should get it. It's called
Oh, you
One
got the
Day.
hardcover.
Oh yeah, I got the hardback. It's called One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El-Akkad. It's an excellent book. If purchasing books is not a burden for you, you should buy it. Otherwise, you should get it from your library. If your library doesn't have it, fun fact, you can request that your library carry certain titles. Um,
Hmm.
Historically, this podcast has been what felt timely and what we had time for. And as we start to try and get into some like deeper dives into one subject or one event at a time, we'll still have episodes like this come out, but it's a little bit of a book club vibe. So Fred and I have both
Yeah.
read through this, and we're giving you advance notice now to pick it up, because beginning mid-April we'll put out an actual announcement. We're going to start going through it, maybe one chapter an episode, maybe more depending on the length of the chapters, but we're going to start breaking it down and talking about what it means, what it meant and what it means, and the larger overarching philosophy behind it, because I think it will continue to be incredibly relevant. It's a really exceptional book that I can't stop thinking about for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. No, I don't have anything to add there. I'm just looking forward. A lot of this was Kat's idea, which I love. And I think it's just our chance to dive into things that are a little bit more, just to be able to provide depth and nuance and complexity, and also have a little bit more of an educational vibe. We always try to blend two worlds between educating around facts, and then also we'll have a hot take here or there, but then also trying to interpret how these things may land and how they're intertwined or how they are impactful for us now and also in the future. Definitely looking forward to that. And then the last thing I just want to say, when we talk about Cuba and what's happening there and this idea of whether socialism can actually work or not, I feel like y'all know where we're going to land on the answer to that. But one of the things I'm really looking forward to doing, and I'll preview a little bit here, is drawing out from that is like we have socialistic examples across the American landscape. I mean, people are like, "Oh, do you want socialism, bro? You already have it." Like, ask your grandma how she goes to the doctor. Ask your favorite sports team, how they built that new stadium. There's socialism is here. They just don't want it for us regular people, right? The rich people got socialism.
Rich
It's
people got
crazy. And then
socialism.
even as
Our
oh,
elected officials have socialism.
next week. Hey, and Hove, stick. I hate to say this, man. We don't want to hear what you guys say about politics. I love you. You're my favorite rapper of all time. Enough. Just go
Ah,
be a capitalist in peace.
I was waiting to see if you were going to say something about that. That interview was fucking crazy.
Go be a capitalist in peace. Go enjoy your money. Keep taking advantage of people because that's the only way you become a billionaire. All right. Sometimes just mind your business. You stick to rap. We'll stick to music. Enjoy the music. It's all good. Just leave it there. Leave it there. Politics as usual.